Harry in Washington. What do you say?
Cool.
Okay. Harry, you are live on Truth Wanted. How can we help you?
Hey, Dan. We've talked before.
Oh, cool. Awesome. Well, welcome back.
Yes. Okay. So I'm going to pick Christy's brain and, as usual, just everything
sounds good.
Always.
Go for it.
All right. So okay. From our previous calls, I was a closet atheist for a long time, and the wife was a very deep theist. Then, and I got advice from Daryl Ray and all that, and we were like, oh, okay, just let her go with the whole, woo thing when she first came out of Christianity. And then she became an atheist, right? And then as things progressed, she comes out, okay, I'm a lesbian. I went through conversion therapy. So that had to do with our marriage thing. We had to discuss how that worked.
Okay.
Recent event, she comes out as trans, and she's transitioning to male. Okay. Which I'm supportive of, because married 20 years, we beat the curve, and she's still the same person.
Yeah.
Deep down.
Yeah.
Right.
It doesn't matter what gender they are.
Yeah, well, it sounds like she's also gone through a lot of abuse and has been put in a lot of boxes and is starting to make some space for herself. So, or himself, if that's how they identify now. But it definitely sounds like it's been a journey.
I get a pass.
Sure.
Yeah.
So your partner does use he, him pronouns?
Yes. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
I constantly though say she just because of habit, and they're like, yeah, cool. You know me for way longer that way. It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now the thing that comes up now is because they are adjusting to their new sexuality. Now it's like, oh, I'm going like almost like in the opposite direction, and like, yeah, I like being feminine.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's got me like, how much of this am I just doing because? And I know you can't psychologically over a whole phone call, but I'm just like, should I really bring this up with somebody, kind of thing?
Yeah, and then, I take your point, but I think I might ask the question a little bit of so what? Like if you're exploring your own gender only in response to watching your partner explore their gender, cool. Like when you see a good idea, ape a good idea. And, you don't want to force yourself into any particular boxes, but if you're having fun trying things on, so to speak, great.
Yeah, I don't think I don't think that's just because you see somebody else doing it doesn't mean that your own experience is somehow invalidated by that. Maybe they've given you some ideas about how you can choose to identify with yourself. Like a common thing you see with the atheist community is like, oh wow, I didn't even know you could be an atheist, because you never met somebody. Like that's something you hear sometimes with that. And I imagine, again, I'm not in that community, but I think trans people realize, oh, I didn't know like this was a thing too. And so people pick up this identity for themselves, and that's where this idea of, oh, you can choose to be gay or you choose to be trans comes from, I think, because people see it and monkey see, monkey do. But really, it's more like, oh, this person has the language and experience that kind of matches up with my experience. And this language is a good description that I didn't have before. And so I'd like to adopt that for myself. There's nothing wrong with that.
Having that cultural technology. And,
yeah,
you may find after, years or maybe days or possibly decades of exploration that you are a cis male, and that's valid. But that doesn't mean that your experiences of wanting to explore this side of yourself, wanting to go spelunking in your own mind, don't matter. How can you truly know that you're a cis male if you've never tried on a pair of lace panties and a dress? I'm not saying gender is that simple, but I do think that having that curiosity about yourself, regardless of who you are, is a really valuable skill.
Well, also, too, I'm going to bring this up, too. I mean, I was born in 1969, so it's like growing up it was a whole 80s scare and the whole like gay, you know, it was never
gay panic, right?
Shall we?
Yeah.
The gay panic also too. I'm a big guy. I'm 6'5", 300 pounds. And if okay, you put me in 4-inch heels, I'm 7 foot tall. So.
Hey, I'm 6'5" too. Okay. And if I wore heels, I think I'd look pretty good. So
hey,
I don't know.
I'm 6'4". I'm just not intimidating.
Well, that's the thing. I'm the guy if you like in male mode, if I'm like go down a dark alley, I have no fear of retribution. And that's
I get you. I get you. I'll say, but Harry, you would not be the first person who once, you know, at least identified as male and then tried on heels and being 6'5". You wouldn't be the first, and you won't be the last.
No.
You know,
and there's nothing about being tall that makes you less of a woman if that's who you are. There's nothing that makes you more of a man. You know, your height is just your height.
Yeah, it just feels weird sometimes because I stick out.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. I'm not going to dismiss that for a second, because that is the way our society treats it. We can talk all day about how things should be. You know, it shouldn't be harder to be trans than to be cis, but it is, and we should acknowledge that too.
Right. So also too, that this kind of brought in things, because the previous caller kind of brought this up with like the nail polish, right? Yeah. So one of the things, because I am sort of, shall we say, closeted, but I put nail polish on. And one thing I've noticed, being who I am, like, okay, another transsexual friend of ours going from female to male, they were on the slight side and like got beat so bad that they were physically injured. Now, I've noticed in this community, I don't have that fear, mostly because anyone short of having a gun wouldn't bother.
Sure.
And I find that hypocrisy really bad. You know what I mean? It's like almost to say like that white privilege thing. Well, it's that scary guy privilege, which really shouldn't be either.
No, there are pieces of that, and then there's a little bit of this sort of moral philosophy in our culture that says that trans men aren't a threat, right? And so it's not that we necessarily validate them; we're just less terrified of them. Which, I mean, I guess like that feels a little bit better than to, you know, see somebody as a villain, but it doesn't really mean that you're seeing them as people. So, you know, I guess I don't know who wins in a suffering Olympics or what the value is of comparing those different experiences, only to say that it's fucking bullshit no matter how you slice it.
Right.
With someone who is close to me, who is a cis woman, who we were talking about, you know, being trans and stuff and what that means. And she was on the side of like, oh, I just can't accept trans women, you know, being in my space and bathrooms and stuff like that. You know, I couldn't call them, you know, a woman in that sense. And I was like, well, what do you feel about trans men? And it was like, oh yeah, no, that's fine. Right. Yeah. Like they were and there was no switch in their brain that said, this doesn't make sense. Right. But hearing that out loud was just like, well, that's about as much of a double standard as you can have, right?
Yeah, so this isn't about science. This isn't about right and wrong. This is about what makes me feel good, which, you know, you need to listen to your own emotions. You need to listen to the things that scare you, but then you need to fucking do something about it. You know, educate yourself.
Yeah. You don't have to earn your gender. You don't have to pass through somebody else's checklist to feel like you are who you are. So I say live it out, you know, like Christy was saying, if it takes some exploration, do it, find some people that will support you, you know, and in that journey and just, you know, be happy.
And that's why I'm very grateful to my partner on this, because they're going through this and they've been very accommodating toward me as well. Which I think that's a coin toss too. Just because, hey, I'm going through this doesn't mean they're going to accept the other person going through it, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And again, like this isn't the first story of a partner figuring out their identity and then, you know, that person figuring them out themselves. Like that happens. It's actually more frequent than you'd probably think, especially if you look up like trans community subreddits and stuff like that. You know, like this is a story that happens with people. So you're not alone. You're not weird. You're not unusual in that sense. Like it's out there.
Does surprise me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does it?
Actually does surprise me because, you know, you would think that, you know, oh my God, this would be the end of it. You know? Yeah.
Well, if you love someone and they love you, well, you know,
yeah,
what's the problem?
That's a big takeaway from that.
Yeah.
I mean, you can almost say that for our whole entire story. Every time we've called you, it's like, hey, if you love each other, stick with each other, you know?
Yeah.
If you're happy and having a good time, you know, not hurting anybody else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep it simple.
Right.
Well, Harry, I hope we gave you some good advice. I hope that you you have a good journey, and I appreciate you.
Yeah, actually, just getting it off the chest really helped, and thanks a lot, guys. And I listened to both of you, so I'm like lurker on the wall on both your shows.
Awesome. Well, we're happy to help.
Appreciate you calling.
Yeah, thanks for calling, Harry. That was a good call. I'm glad we got to talk about that.
You know, if you can reach just one person.
Yeah. Yeah, like this is somebody who is older than both of us, right? Who is like finding like wisdom in what we have to say. I think that's incredible. Like that.
I mean, like it was not lost on me that he is exactly my father's age, and grew up with a lot of the same, you know, cultural panics and cultural concerns. And, you know, we were joking before the show about how my dad was terrified of Dungeons and Dragons because of a stupid made-for-TV movie that convinced him that it was evil. And those kinds of milestones informed his life such that he and I don't speak because I am this monster to him, because he watched, you know, the AIDS epidemic and these other issues through a different lens. And so to speak to somebody like that last caller and hear that there is, you know, still an opportunity to witness those things and come to a more reasoned understanding.
Yeah. And again, it's culture that informs us this too. I mean, like we're talking about jokes and movies and stuff. You go to like, you can find a bunch of movies from the 90s, 2000s even, that'll say like the joke is that they're dressing like a woman. And that's not how. Yeah. Like, or sometimes the joke is straight up that they're trans. Like that's it. Right. Like there's no punchline. That's the
entire punchline. That is
they're just trans, and it's like. It's wild. It's wild that we got away with that for so long, you know, like, but I'm glad the world's changing, you know?
Yeah. You know, I say this on my show all the time, so I apologize for repeating myself, but as much as it is easy to get frustrated, I have a partner who just loves 90s sitcoms. And so I'll come home, and while she's cooking dinner, there will be Fresh Prince or Sister Sister or Family Matters or Seinfeld or The Simpsons or whatever else. And it's hard to watch a 90s sitcom and not feel like we've made some progress, not to feel like things are getting better on a lot of these issues, because there's so many jokes. I mean, not that there's anything wrong with it, was the big Seinfeld joke about homosexuality. And, you know, I guess you could say that was a progressive idea, that there's nothing wrong with homosexuality, but Jesus, does that not feel like progress in 2020?
For humor. Yeah. And like it was punching down. It was taking that to someone's expense, which, like, I think that's the difference now, right? It's like there's tons of people who are gay and making fun of themselves or making fun of like the community and stuff like that. That happens. It's just the context is different, right? The self-deprecation there is more positive. It's more like it's not like the joke is that they're gay. It's the joke is that like, oh, there's things that we do in our community that you see patterns of, you know, like that's and if it's coming from somebody who is actually a part of that community, I mean, that's totally different from two, you know, like straight dudes just joking about, oh, I don't want to be gay, you know, I don't know. That's my Seinfeld impression. It wasn't very good,